Hi. How's your nerves been?
It's going good. I mean, it's the last day, and to be honest, this is my actually second time coming to New York. The first time I was here in 23 in New Orleans. It was a little different for me. I was working in natural language understanding space within Capital One, but I was more in applied field, and I would say I was probably publishing more patents and not really like papers or something, and still trying to know what's going on. So when I came 23, I was very overwhelmed. I was like, okay, I am falling behind. There's so much going on. And had an interesting experience. This time, I think, so I'm at Amazon and applied scientist. I work in the AGI web grounding team. And it's still applied, but I think I have a more command on where the research is going and like have more understanding of, where my interests are. So this time I was not really overwhelmed. It was more like, okay, they are very interesting talks. Some are related to like inferencing, which is one of my interests, web grounding, another interest, and then similar to I was doing a lot of SFT work in my previous company. So I knew like some of the places that I want to really learn. And I think I was mostly attending some sessions related to it. But I think the poster session is for me the best because like that's where I can know like which section to go and like what to learn, and like I think that's what's interesting for me. I do see a lot of direction going towards videos, multimodal, and humanoid, like that kind of area, since language is getting like very,
It's a little saturated. Yeah.
saturated. So that's one thing. Another I see inferencing is like another area that people are. So yeah, it's an interesting experience. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Do you want to sort of just to give context, introduce yourself and what you've been working on recently?
Yeah. So I'm an applied scientist at Amazon. I work in, as I mentioned, like AGI web grounding team. When I mentioned web grounding, it means basically like web indexing. So like indexing the entire web for whatever search purposes. So yeah, I work on that team. Actually, when I initially joined, I was working in the data team to prepare data for pre-training models. Since like even my previous background was either working towards SFT or in a startup, or in Capital when I was in the pre-training and mostly working on the data side or evals. This time I think this is an interesting experience for me because we are operating at a billion scale, and we have to figure out billion scale data sets. So we have to figure out like what kind of models really can go, because large size model cannot really go to inferencing for production. So how do we find such techniques or models which can still work for us and can go in production? And then inferencing, I keep mentioning, is one of my interests because I noticed in different companies that I work for, whether a small startup to a big company or fintech, you can have like these really nice, awesome models, but the problem is like productionizing them is really hard. It's latency heavy. So I've been looking into like VLLMs and a couple of those things and what are inferencing optimization technique. I do teach a course with O'Reilly on inferencing optimization because I'm kind of getting more interested in that area because I feel like that's where most of the enterprises are struggling with.
That makes sense. So were you presenting work at this NERPS, or were you just mostly here to sort of see what's up, what people are talking about these days?
I have a workshop poster tomorrow at Foundation of Reasoning Language Models. It's related to multi-model reasoning. So basically, I had this very simple idea actually, where let's say they are images, and like we have this question and the answer and the reasoning, being produced through these images. What if you blank out a certain part of the image? How does the reasoning change? Not just the answer. Does the reasoning change? Is the model still able to answer? If yes, like how does it impact the chain of thought steps? So it was a simple idea, and basically decided to just take one of the data set, mask out regions, see like if you mask out specific regions, how do the reasoning impacts across some of the new models that are there in VLM space, versus if you mask out random areas, what happens. So very simple thought. I'm just interested overall, like, do we really need the entire image to answer a question, or like how does it impact the reasoning, or do we really just need very specific regions? Because I see some of the new models, especially like I was looking at clock architecture by Apple, and they were doing a lot of these things, figuring out the specific regions in an image, but they do it more for pre-training. So I thought maybe I should just do a simple diagnostic analysis on these things. So yeah.
Yeah. So what are the results? Like, how does masking out parts of the image actually affect the reasoning traces?
Interestingly, I saw like, so for, let's say, GPT-4o or Claude, right, there's an API layer on top of it. So when we get the answers through it, some of the times, like GPT-4o refuse to give any answers for masking, because the thing is, there's a guard railing, because it's through an API. It's not the open source weight that we are directly pulling. Whereas for Quen and all, these models, like, we don't have like a guard railing on it, right? We're directly taking the weights, so they will more often than not like give some hallucinated answers, or flip the answers or something, because it's not coming through API. So I think that was the thing. For some of the model, it was interesting. Like, it's able to answer even though the entire chain of thought reasoning has completely changed. It's completely hallucinated reasoning. It's probably coming from internal knowledge or something, but it's able to answer correctly, even though the reasoning steps, because we were marking each and every reasoning steps to see if it's modified or completely changed, deleted. Even that's all changed, it still returns the answer. So that was interesting. And for some, like, I saw, because the flip rate, let's say the answer completely flips, right? We were measuring answer flip rate. In that case, basically, if that happens, like if the answer completely flips, there are high likely chance that the entire reasoning and everything, and that is like the true groundedness to check, because we want the answer to change if a specific area is changed. One thing I saw, like, if you just randomly mask some parts of the image, that does not change the answer that much. But if we mask like a very specific region that is there in the data set, like these are important parts, that's where the answer flips, which is obvious, right? Like, but yeah, like specific region masking would flip more than the region. But I think interesting part for me was like it's able to answer some of them correctly even though the entire reasoning steps are completely changed. So it's just getting somewhere from internal knowledge or something.
I see. Yeah, what kinds of questions are you asking? Like, is there like a wide range of possible?
Yeah, so this basically I was using Visag's dataset, which basically have regions of interest, and then they have ground truth chain of thought like chain of thought reasoning steps as well. So we had that kind of dataset. It had question and the answer, but some of the questions, actually, even if it flips the answer, it's like instead of giving tea as an answer, it's giving coffee, right? And I think it's probably because now it's confused, so it flipped the answer. And even though maybe the reasoning steps are not completely wrong or something, they're still fine. It's just like it's not able to decide because certain part of the image are changed. So those kind of flips we saw at one point. I think it was not even tea coffee, it just picked up some words in the image, like creativity. Instead of saying this is tea coffee, it was like creativity, because there's like creativity written at the bottom of the page, and because the other parts were masked out. But yeah, it was this data set like had, I think we were looking at 2-3 different data sets. So this one actually had much more different types of images, and were not too generic images. They had some like painting kind of thing, and also like painting where there's a fox looking at it. It was just more spread out than as compared to other images, like some of the data set like I saw where quality of the images were low or they were very obvious. Like these ones were far more spread around in different categories of it, like from Coca-Cola type to like some scenery type. So it was a mix of it. So overall, yeah. But I think the point was to show that like how the reasoning steps could break, but you could still get the correct answer internally. It's from internal knowledge. That means that maybe even that image is not like really that specific region is probably not playing a role, or it has already like figured out from rest of the images like how to cover that information. Yeah, it's infilling it probably because it's already trained on some of these data sets, and it knows that kind of information. Yeah.
If all of it pans out, in the next 3 to 5 years, what do you hope the state of AI will be?
I was mentioning humanoid robots or those kind of things because I'm seeing there's a lot of investment going on in this space. Suddenly, I was reading an article where not just big tech, but a lot of startups are coming and pouring money in this space, apart from web agents, like which is another space where people are really putting a lot of money. So I think that space is going far along. But I think humanoid robots, I want to see how it would be really used, because some of those things might come into picture, but I don't know if like how many people will adopt. Like adoption might be the biggest problem in those spaces. Whereas like for web agents, like I think people are okay. The adoption might not be a hurdle or hassle for some of those things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks.